So I just got back from seeing Furiosa. This will be my first movie review on here since, well, having some people that might see it. So, bit of a different angle. You'll see that I have the DVD collection behind me instead of the game collection. I figure if I'm talking about games, I'll stand over there. If I'm talking about films, I'll stand over here. Anyway, let's get into it, shall we? Furiosa is a prequel to Mad Max Fury Road, which was a sequel to the original Mad Max trilogy from, at this point, a few decades ago. If we're being real here, Mad Max Fury Road was more about Furiosa than Mad Max anyway, and to be real with you, I haven't seen the original Mad Max trilogy. I have them behind me somewhere, but a couple of weeks ago, in preparation for Furiosa, we watched Fury Road, and Fury Road really did feel like the Furiosa show, so, and also take a shot every time I say Furiosa in this review, by the way. But the basic plot of this film is, it details how we got from random girl living in some sort of green place to Imperator, I think, or even Praetorian, something like that. A high up member of the biker gang from hell, we'll call it. It also explains how she loses her arm and how she becomes bald. And to be real with you, I was watching this film and I was like, when's Anya Taylor-Joy coming into this? Because the trailers, the two characters that we're shown loads are Chris Hemsworth with what looks like a prosthetic nose and less of the Marvel juice, probably more TRT, and Anya Taylor-Joy as younger version of Furiosa. But in the actual film itself, Anya Taylor-Joy doesn't come into it for quite a while. For the first half an hour, it might have even been like 45 minutes, because this was a pretty long film. It was the Chris Hemsworth show, which is sometimes not a good thing, especially recently because of Thor Love and Thunder being just the worst written thing to ever exist. And trust me, I'm usually that guy that likes films people don't like. I find enjoyment in nearly any film I've ever seen. There are very few films that I don't like. Like, the amount of times, I can't tell you. I watch a lot of reviewers, and the amount of times I've gone and seen a film, come home and watched a review, and the reviewer's like, that was awful, and I'm like, I enjoyed it. But that the fourth Thor film, try and say that 3 times fast, was a film that really annoyed me, because it did Thor a disservice. And to be fair, it put the image or the sentiment in my head that Chris Hemsworth is just not a very good actor, and that's just not true. Chris Hemsworth was really quite good in this, and I'm pretty sure that Chris Hemsworth himself is Australian, and I still don't think he was allowed to do his real voice. He seems to be a character that, or an actor that is never allowed to speak with his like real accent. Another one being Tom Hardy. There's a film coming out in a few weeks called Bike Riders. Again, he sounds a bit strange in that. Tom Hardy's never allowed to sound like Tom Hardy. Chris Hemsworth is never allowed to sound like Chris Hemsworth. Anya Taylor-Joy is never allowed to speak in any film she's ever in, I swear to God, besides like The Menu. I feel like I've seen Anya Taylor-Joy in quite a few things in recent years, but I don't really know too much what her voice sounds like, because I feel like she just doesn't ever have much dialogue in the film she's in, and that is kind of a character trait of the character Furiosa in this, is that up until her point of revenge, she is mostly mute until it matters most, because she's trying to pretend to not be who she is so that she can blend in and learn the skills she needs to take her revenge. And that is what this film is, really, a revenge film. And revenge stories in general are something I really enjoy. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to see the Crow re-release from 1994 with Brandon Lee, which is a story entirely about revenge. I love simplicity and I love revenge in things. It's just, I think it's why John Wick did so well, outside of like all the things that made John Wick do well. So anytime you've got a revenge story in a cool world like this, I'm in. Especially when, typically, I'm not the kind of guy that cares about cars in films. Like, I'd never watched the Fast and Furious films, which are also behind me somewhere, until a few years ago, because I'm not into cars. It's just not a thing I really care much about. So when you look at Mad Max and it's like, oh, cars, I'm just like, I don't really care. Or bikes, I suppose. I swear Mad Max has got more bikes in than cars. But judging between Mad Max Fury Road and just Furiosa, it's more about the characters than the cars anyway, although the action scenes can go on for quite a long time. In fact, this isn't a spoiler, but there was an action scene in this film that they just sort of fast forwarded through themselves. They were like, yeah, we're skipping this. Like, the pacing of the film knew that they didn't need to show us this battle that's about to happen, because we've already seen how this battle plays out. Like, between these two films, 5 or 6 times now. There's only so many times you can see people fighting from bikes to big trucker tanker style combat. Once you've seen it a few times, it's like, yeah, we get the gist. And that is probably my only complaint about this film. The only thing that was really a bit was the length of it. It was 2.5 hours. And again, I'm not usually one that is concerned by long films whatsoever. I usually think that the longer a film is, typically the better made it often is. There seems to be a correlation between effort put forth and length of film sometimes, which is kind of the opposite of gaming, which is interesting. Often the shorter a game is, the better it tends to be, whereas the games that are long and drawn out are just worse. But in films, your Lord of the Rings is, for example, just you just always want more. However, there was a point in which at this film, and I was like, good Lord, we're still not done. And typically a compliment that I give a film is that if I have no idea where in the runtime I am in this film, it's a good film. Because near enough every film ever follows like a 3-act structure. And in my head, I don't know why, but I do this. I'll be like, right, we've just hit Act 3. Just at certain points in a film, I'd be like, right, we've just hit Act 3. And I couldn't really tell where we were at in this film because it had its own numbering system. It had like a 5-act structure. And it doesn't tell you at the start just how many chapters there's going to be. We got to like chapter 4 and I was like, right, this feels like Act 3. This feels like we're coming to the end now. And then there's still another 45 minutes left of film. And I'm like, wow, we are really still going, huh? So besides potentially staying around a little bit longer than it needed to, I think it was a great film. I would advise going to see it. It's probably better than a lot of the other things that are on at the cinema at the moment, that's for sure. I enjoyed this more than The Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I enjoyed this more than Strangers. Did not enjoy this more than Abigail. If Abigail's still out where you are, it's not in the cinema near me anymore because for some reason my cinema only shows films for a few weeks at a time. It's strange. Like literally maybe a week per film. They don't hang around. The only thing that hang around in my local cinema are like children's films. Kung Fu Panda 4 is still playing, for example. Mario, I think, might even still be playing, and that's definitely over a year old. That's on DVD now. I would say potentially the weakest aspect of this film is maybe the romance aspect between Furiosa and this one other character who appears like maybe halfway in the film, doesn't speak too much, and then I don't even know how to word what happens. I just don't feel like that dynamic was done very well, we'll put it that way. My favourite part to all of this was towards the end of the film, at the final climax, this is potentially spoiler territory now, but I don't think I'm going to get too spoilery. At the end of the day, you expect that the main good guy is going to encounter the main bad guy and have a battle at some point. They exchange words for quite a while, and there's a decently long monologue from Chris Hemsworth's character, and I'm like, that was cool. This has won me back to Team Chris Hemsworth. Films have been doing that recently where they're like winning me over towards actors. For example, I think it was Immaculate with Sydney Sweeney, and I'd never seen Sydney Sweeney in anything ever, but I knew that Madam Web got bombed and she was only in like, what, Euphoria before that. She wasn't exactly like somebody that you go, oh, Sydney Sweeney, great actress, you know? But towards the end of that film, she does this one scream and that won me over. I was like, she gave it her all. And Chris Hemsworth and Anya Taylor-Joy both have moments like that towards the end of this film, and I was like, that was good. I think Chris Hemsworth might be in his Jason Momoa stage of his career now, where he's just sort of doing potentially sillier, funnier things more frequently rather than hardcore serious roles. Like I think Jason Momoa is done being the shredded, ripped big guy, and he's just like, I'll be the funny but still kind of big guy, you know? And I think Chris Hemsworth is there as well, especially like Ragnarok onwards. But yeah, this is my first movie review. It was fun. I enjoyed it. And yeah, if you guys made it this far into the video, do subscribe and like the video, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.